In the Savannah of West Africa, on the fringes of the Sahara Desert, there developed three great states before 1450. You had Ghana, Mali, and Canaan Borno. Many other smaller states developed alongside them, such as the Hausa states and what is now the northern Nigeria. Here we shall be concerned mainly with the rise of the three major states, Ghana, Mali, and Canaan Borno. So each of them, at the height of its power, could be considered an empire. That is, their rulers held sway not only over their own kingdoms, but also over other kingdoms whose rulers paid tribute to them. The origins of Ghana, situated in the far western savannah on the very fringes of the desert, are obscure. It may have existed as early as the 5th century AD or even before. Certainly by the 8th century AD, it had become important enough for its fame as the land of the gold to reach Baghdad. There in the court of the Caliph, the most important of the rulers of the Muslim world at the time, news of Ghana was recorded by the great geographer El-Fazari. At first, Mali was a tributary kingdom of Ghana, and its origins are also obscure. It became an independent state only in the 13th century and did not develop into a major savannah power until the following century. Canaan was founded in the 9th or 10th century AD and was at first situated to the northeast of Lake Chad, strictly outside West Africa as we have defined it. However, by the late 15th century, its center of power had shifted to Borno, southwest of Lake Chad. It is for this reason that as a state, it is often referred to as Kanem Borno. The growth of this series of states along the fringe of the Sahara can best be explained by the special trade opportunities that such a situation offered. We have seen that trade had been carried across the Sahara for many hundreds of years before the Christian era. Carthage imported ivory and gold from West Africa. Shortly after AD 100, the camel was introduced to Africa, increasing the possibilities for trans-Saharan trade. The camel, as distinct from the horse and donkey, which up until now had been the main means of transport for the Saharan traders, can travel many days without needing to stop for water. Moreover, it is a much larger animal and can carry a greater loads of goods. When Arabs conquered North Africa in the 7th century AD, they found that the Berbers, the original inhabitants of that area, traded across the desert to West Africa. One of the main items of their trade was gold. This was to be of a particular importance to Arabs. Since gold was the basis of their monetary system, West Africa, with its great reserve of gold, was to become the major source of its supply to the Arab world and from there to Europe and Asia. See, the Arabs were not only interested in gold, but also in ivory, as well as ostrich feathers and leather. Ivory, for instance, was a major item in the exports of Canaan Borno, which did not have access to gold supplies. They also soon started to purchase slaves. See, their demand for Negro slaves increased as the Berbers, whom they originally used as slaves, were converted to Islam. I'm going to rewind that back in case y'all missed it. The Arabs were not only interested in gold, but also in ivory, as well as ostrich feathers and leather. Ivory, for instance, was a major item in the exports of Canaan Borno, which did not have access to gold supplies. They also soon started to purchase slaves. Their demand for Negro slaves increased as their Berbers, whom they originally used as slaves, were converted to Islam. Under Islamic law, it was forbidden to enslave a Muslim. See, in turn, West Africans were eager to purchase salt from the desert peoples. Since salt was in short supply everywhere, salt was in short supply everywhere and was literally worth its weight in gold to them. West Africans also bought cloth, copper beads, weapons, horses, and as they were converted to Islam, books from the Arabs and Berber traders. The empires through which this trade was conducted experienced great prosperity. Not all of their inhabitants had to farm. With money gained from trade and foodstuff could be imported, and some citizens could be released to specialize full-time in such occupations as traders, builders, smiths, craftsmen, and even entertainers. The taxes levied on goods passing through their kingdoms enabled rulers to employ full-time administrations and support large armies, and even equip them with imported weapons. These armies enabled them to secure trade routes, crush rebellions against their rule, protect their citizens from outside attack, and conquer neighboring peoples. Indeed, some peoples voluntarily joined these empires for the protection and security that could provide for them. All three empires at their height covered large areas of land, much larger than the majority of the states in Europe in the 11th century AD. Perhaps the most interesting feature of these states was that they were multi-ethnic. That is, they included within their frontier peoples from many different ethnic groups. To these people, they offered not only the security that superior military power could provide, but also the opportunity to participate in the trans-Saharan trade. Sometimes subject peoples would continue to be ruled by their own kings, who acknowledged the authority of the imperial ruler by paying them tribute. And sometimes they would be directly administered by imperial governors who were either members of the royal family or royal slaves. Another common feature of these empires was the increasingly important role Islam was to play in them. The North African traders who crossed the desert were mostly Muslim. The North African traders who crossed the desert were mostly Muslims. On their visits, they converted some of their West African colleagues. Others were converted by example. Some Arabs settled for considerable lengths of time in the imperial capitals, building mosques and encouraging the local people to attend them. Islam does not have priests in the Christian sense, and it is an obligation for every Muslim to spread his faith. Because many Muslims learned how to read and write, they became particularly useful in the imperial rulers, who began with continue to follow their own religions. See, they helped with tax collections and other aspects of governments where it was necessary to keep records. This is similar to the role played by the clerics in the courts European kings during the Middle Ages. West African merchants found conversion to Islam very useful, not only because it gave them an opportunity to learn how to read and write, but also because it made them members of a larger Muslim world. Whatever their native language, they could communicate in Arabic with West Africans as well as with the Arabs. They had no problems in trading in North Africa itself. One of the most significant results of conversion to Islam was the West Africans had a new and wider loyalty to a world religion that cut across tribal and national loyalties. The ruling group in Ghana were the Soninke. They called their kingdom Ouagadougou. The reason why Arabs knew it was Ghana is that Ghana, meaning war leader, was one of the titles used for the kings of Ouagadougou. Their capital was almost certainly Kumbi-Sali, which was recently excavated. Our information about early Ghana is very slight except for references to its connections with the gold trade. The largest extent of Ghana is difficult to determine, but it seems to have been limited to the west by the Senegal River, where the smaller state of Takur flourished. To the south, it exercised some form of control over Bambouk, where it obtained its gold supplies. To the east, it extended its rule to the Niger. To the north, it was bounded by the Sahara, but it did control the Berber town of Agadas, which was the southern terminus of the trans-Saharan caravan route to Sijilmasa. The ruler of Ghana clearly followed his own religion, despite the fact that he used Muslim officials and a separate Muslim city grew up outside his capital. The king of Ghana, like the king of Canaan Barno, was considered to be divine by his subjects. That is, he was a god on earth and was worshipped and such by them. One of their main functions of the king, apart from his role as the chief priest of the state, was to control trade. Succession to the office of the king appears to have been matrilineal, since al-Bukhari, the Spanish Arab traveler, wrote in the 11th century that it is their custom to that a king is succeeded only by his sister's son. Now, al-Bukhari, who visited the court of Taqu-Manin, the reigning king of Ghana in 1065 AD, noted that the king, while wielding great power, was praiseworthy in his conduct, being a lover of justice. He possessed a huge army, which al-Bukhari estimated at 200,000 men, of whom 40,000 were bowmen. There was also a large cavalry unit. He levied taxes and imported salt and gold to pay for his administration of the empire. For instance, the king levied a tax on a denier of gold on each donkey load of salt that came into Ghana. His people were only allowed to sell gold dust. All nuggets and large pieces of gold remained under his control. Otherwise, gold would be so abundant that its value would depreciate. Mansa Musa. Today, the Americans do similar thing. Their paper currency is backed by gold. They therefore buy up large quantities of gold from modern Ghana and South Africa and hoard it in Fort Knox. If they did not buy up this gold, then the market would be flooded with it and the value would go down. This would mean the value of their currency would also fall. Like the kings of Ghana, they try to keep the value of gold high by not allowing too much on the market at one time. To maintain their control of the trans-Saharan trade, the kings of Ghana allied with the Berbers of the Zenata group, who lived under the Ghanaian rule in Agadas, but ruled Sijilmasa independently. The great rivals of the Zenata were the Sanhaja, who were also Berbers. During the 11th century, they were swept by I can't even say that word, puritanical movement, demanding the return of its members to pure form of Islam. This became known as the Alma Rivet movement. From the Arabic al-Marabatin, I know Sutek in the chat. This name was derived either from the fact that the movement began from the Rivet, or fortified religious settlement, or from the manner in which they fought. Because of the internal rivalries, the movement split into two. One group under Ibn Tashafu continued the conquest of Morocco, where he established the Almoravid dynasty. Later, they crossed into Spain to help those emirs who were fighting against the Christians and the Muslims who had compromised the enemies of the Islam. Now, also, they found the great city of Marrakesh in Morocco, which became the capital, and from the Moroccans, it took its name. After taking control of Sijilmasa, the Almoravids conquered the Agadas in 1055 AD. The other group, led by Abubakar B. Umar, allied with Ghana's west neighbor, Tukwar, which had already accepted Islam and invaded Ghana, whose rulers still followed their traditional religion. About 1076 to 1077 AD, the Almoravids finally conquered Ghana and began converting its inhabitants to Islam. It is not clear whether the Almoravids disposed the ruler of Ghana or imposed the ruler of their own choice. Almoravid rule did not last long, and by the beginning of the 12th century AD, Ghana had reigned its independence. It continued to flourish as of late 1153, 1154, but El Idrisi still considered Ghana the greatest kingdom in the western Savannah. But after the power of Ghana declined, it had been weakened by the Alma Rivet conquest. Later on, its lost its position of principal terminus of the trans-Saharan caravan trade to Walata. Some of its tributary kingdoms asserted their independence, so that by the 13th century, it had become much smaller and weaker. Ghana was succeeded as the most important state in the area by its former subject state, Soso, which in turn was replaced by who? Mali. According to the tradition, the Soso gained their independence from Ghana as a result of the Alma Rivet invasion. But in 1180, the Sanike soldier called Dera Kanti overthrew the ruling Sanike dynasty of Soso, and one of his successors, Sumaguru Kanti, later conquered Ghana. Shortly afterwards, he conquered the small state of Mali, which had been a tributary of Ghana. Traditional records record that Samaguru put to death all his royal family of Mali except the crippled prince Sundiata Kita. Sundiata is the subject of a great epic, still sung to this day by the griots, or professional praise singers of modern Mali. Now, various versions of his life exist. Despite being crippled, he's remembered as a great hunter and warrior. He is also remembered like Samangari Kanti as a powerful magician. Sundiata had gone into exile because of jealousy between his mother and the reigning queen, who had attempted to murder him. After the slaughter of the royal family by Sumangara Kanti, he was the only prince left alive. His people sent for him to come and to rid them of tyrannical rule of Sumangara. Now, he led a successful rising of the Malinke chieftains against the Soso. His defeat of Sumangaru, is remembered as a trial of the strength of two great magicians, whose Sundiata proved the more powerful. Sundiata was the founder of the great independent state of Mali, which at its height extended westward to the Gambia and eastward along the Niger to Gayo, capital of a small Songhai state, which became tributary to Mali. To the northern of Mali controlled the caravan termini of the southern Sahara. To the south, the new gold fields of Baru, as well as those in Bambouk of the upper Niger. Most significant of all, Mali's central area was the Savannah itself, whereas that of Ghana had been the less fertile Sahara fringe. Sundiata's son, Mansa, or King Uli. So Mansa Uli went on a pilgrimage to Mecca during the reign of the Mameluke Sultan of Egypt, the Berbers, showing that Islam had now become the state religion of Mali. By the reign of Mansa Musa, it had become firmly established among the ruling class. It was Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 that literally put Mali on the map. During the stay in Egypt, on his way to Mecca, he spent and gave away so much gold that there was a devaluation of the currency. As a result of his fame spread as far as Europe, where in 1339 Angelino Dosart included Rex Meli, or King of Mali, on his map of Africa. The Catalan map of Abraham Cresco of about 1375 shows Musa Meli seated on the throne wearing a gold crown and describes him as the richest and most notable king in the land. Now, for people that are very unfamiliar with Mansa Musa and the map that I'm referring to, if you go to Google and you pull up that map, which was created by this European, right, Angelino Dosart, he put that little image that you see with the crown. Everybody has seen this. As a matter of fact, let me give you the visual. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up and share my screen for the people. So now you know who the author of this map is, right? So I'm going to say it again. You now know who the author of this map is. And now you know when if you've read volume 3 of Spiritual Combat, when you go to my chapter about Mansa Musa, and then you read my other chapter about Prester John in another case, now y'all see where I was going with my hypothesis. And I clearly state that in that article. I clearly make the argument that Mansa Musa is the reason why them people came into West Africa. I was hypothesizing because he put on the front. And now, right, you can see some of what I'm saying coming to fruition, because I'm gonna run it back for people who ain't catching what I'm putting up, catching what I'm putting up. Now it says, during his stay in Egypt on his way to Mecca, he spent and gave away so much gold that there was a devaluation of currency. As a result of this, fame spread as far as Europe. So his fame spread as far as Europe, where in 1339, Angelino Dosset included Rex Mele, or King of Mali, on his map of Africa. You see it? Rex Mele, King of Mali. This is Rex Mele, which means King of Mali, on his map. Now, the Catalina map of Abraham Crescas of about 1375 shows Musa Mele seated on a gold throne. You see it? Seated on a gold throne, wearing a gold crown, and describes him as the richest and most notable king in all the land. Now, gold continued to be the most important export of the area and was basis of Mali's wealth. The king of Mali, like the predecessors in Ghana, maintained a monopoly of the trade in his items. So powerful did Mali become in the 14th century as a result of gold trade that it expanded east along the Niger, conquering Djen and Timbuktu, which both owed their growth into important trade centers to this period. Ibn Battuta, the most famous traveler of his time, who had been as far as China, visited Niamey, capital of Mali, in 1353. He was greatly impressed by the way in which Mansa of the day ruled, and here's his writings. He says, the Negroes possess some admirable qualities. They are seldom unjust and have a greater adherence of justice than any other people. Their sultan shows no mercy to anyone who is guilty of at least act of it. Neither traveler nor inhabitant in it has anything to fear from robbers or men or violence. They do not confiscate the property of any white man or Arab. Well, in this instance, he says white man, but bracketed Arab. Remember, everybody that didn't look like these other people, when they use the word white, they're referring to Arabs. And this is clear, the Badani, who dies in their country, even if it be uncounted wealth. This was perhaps the greatest achievement of the Savannah states, to maintain peace and justice over vast areas in which trade could be freely carried on. Battuta, however, noted that the tension that existed at the court, these were to be among the causes of Mali's decline and its eventual conquest by a subject state of Songhai, which we're going to get into the Songhai, and we're going to deal with the kings of Songhai. So now you know that when I mentioned the other day about that political move going from Musas to Askias, or from Sunnis to Musas to Askias, you can kind of see this transformation take place. All right. Now, as Mali expanded eastwards, its main axis became the River Niger, and its most important trading towns became Timbuktu and Djen. It began to tap the gold resources of the Akan forests as well as those of the Bure. Its wealth gave rise to a class of scholars based on principally of Timbuktu and Djen. In Timbuktu and Sankore, Mosque became a renowned center of scholarship, equivalent to the medieval universities of Europe. Now, we can trace Mali's decline from the beginning of the 15th century. Mali suffered from numerous internal weaknesses, especially succession disputes and civil wars. Moreover, the Massey from the south raided as far as Timbuktu. Messina and Songhai, which were tributary states of Mali, became restive under its rule. Tuaregs, who had been the original owners of Timbuktu, raided its northeast frontiers. In the second half of the 15th century, the Songhai, under the brilliant leader Chi Ali or Sunni Ali the Great, conquered Jin and Timbuktu and replaced Mali by Songhai as its most important power in the western Savannah. At its height, Mali was one of the largest empires in contemporary world. It controlled a complex network of trade routes from the desert to the forest. Along these, Muslim traders from Wangara, known as Daula, moved freely, establishing trade posts. Through their close cooperations with each other, based on their common faith in Islam, these Daula traders helped bring the empire great prosperity, though credited which they introduced into the commercial system of West Africa long before the Europeans started on the coast. They linked Sahara, Savannah, and forests. Mali was recognized by important North African powers like Morocco and Egypt, with whom ambassadors were exchanged. Perhaps most important of all, it was in Mali that Muslim scholarship first flourished in large-scale Savannah. It was to begin a tradition that lasted down to the centuries. The empire of Kanem-Borno developed independently of Ghana and Mali. That is not surprising. When you look at its position on the map, it lay far away from both Ghana and Mali and is situated to the northeast of Lake Chad. The original homeland of the Kanem was separated from the lands to the south by Lake Chad and those by the west by a great tract, barren land, and desert. So let me give y'all that. Let me give y'all that. Let me give you a good example. I could use my image. Yeah, I can give you this. This will work. So y'all can see just how Kanem-Borno is linked. And we're off. All right, there you go. Now, tradition records that Canaan was founded by the great Arab. Y'all remember me saying this yesterday? The great Arab hero, Saif Yazin, who gained control of a group of Negro nomads called the Mugami. He founded a dynasty which ruled Kanem-Borno until 1846, and which was certainly one of the longest lived dynasties in world history. Now, you remember we had a brother bring up Kanem-Borno, and then he said they were involved in the slave trade. But tradition records that Kanem was founded by a great Arab hero. The dynasty was known as the Safari Dynasty after his first name. The kings were known as the Ma'is, which mean like kings or lords, and their kingdom appears to have been founded in the 9th or 10th century. That means 666. The early states appear to have been nomadic, not the result of the conquest of sedentary people by nomads, but the grouping together of the various nomad groups in the area. To begin with, these nomads had no fixed capital, nor did they live in the towns. It was more like a confederation of nomads under an acknowledged ruling group. The first mention of the fixed towns is not made until the 12th century, when Al-Drisi records the town of Manin and Njimi. Later Njimi, though whose site had not been fixed, became the capital of Kanem. We know very little indeed about early Kanem. It is, however, clear that it was the terminus of the caravan route to Tunis and Tripoli through Bilma and Zawali in the Fezzan. No doubt it was along this route that Islam reached Kanem in much the same way it did Ghana. I I'm intentionally doing this, y'all. I'm sorry. I apologize. I just have a problem with stressing and bringing a point to people that when you mention something, you're going to see this historical fact. Now, I'm reading West African history. I'm not doing all of that, linking it and trying to make a claim. I'm going to deal with the history books. What does the history book say? And it says, Islam had certainly become important in Canaan by the 11th century, for Mahum is recorded as the 13th ruler, but the first to make the pilgrimage. He the 13th ruler, but he the first to make the pilgrimage. Islam's presence was in Canaan in 666, but it later became an elevated state once it was recognized and one of their kings made the actual pilgrimage and they were recognized. Now, by the late 12th century or early 13th century, we can suppose that Islam had become the state religion. One Mai Duma Dimbalami at this time made the pilgrimage 3 times during his reign. In 1240s, a hostel was founded in Cairo, especially for students from Canaan. Canaan was initially composed of a series of different nomadic groups, but under skillful rulers who followed a careful policy of intermarriage with their subjects' leading families. They merged into a single group speaking a single language, Kanuri. By the 13th century, the Kanuri had become so powerful that they began to expand their control over non-Kanuri peoples. They also took over control of Fezzan, with an outpost there some 1,300 kilometers from Njimi. To the south, however, their expansion met their fierce resistance from the local peoples collectively known as the So. During the 14th century, Canaan came under great pressure from a powerful group of nomads called the Bulala. At that same time, there were quarrels within the royal family as to who should succeed the throne. Indeed, the history of the 14th century sometimes seems to be just as a series of succession disputes and wars with the Bulala. Finally, the Bulala drove the stripe-torn Safari leaders out of their homeland, forcing them to settle in Borno. Not until Mai Ali Gaji came to throne at the end of the 15th century did the Safari begin to see an end to their troubles. First of all, he put an end to their succession disputes. Second, he founded a new capital in Gazamgamu. And third, he began to gain ground against the Bulala. Indeed, so great was his achievements in restoring the fortunes of the Safari that his successor was able to drive the Bulala out of Njami. Unfortunately, we do not have any contemporary accounts of Canaan Barnu for this period written in detail with which Batuti described Mali. But we can say a little about the organizations of the state in its earlier period. Clearly, Canaan Barnu was principally a trading state built up along a trans-Saharan trade route. It exchanged the goods of North Africa with those of the savannah and the forest in the south. Ivory, cola, and slaves were its most important exports. Islam became the state religion by the 12th century, onwards though the kings, while practicing Muslims, maintained their divine status, a fact in which is stressed in the early Arab accounts of Canaan. To begin with, the kingdom was governed through royal princesses, but since these princes often used their provinces as a basis to contest the kingship, they were replaced by royal slaves and kept at home. They forced movement of the state southwards and its consequent incursions into Borno, extended the rule of the original nomads over Negro agriculturalists. We know very little about these farmers except that they were skilled potters, and many of them lived in small, walled villages. Some of these have been excavated and have revealed interesting figurines similar, but not as beautiful as the No culture. As the Safari moved south, they also came into contact with who we know as the Hassa people to their immediate west. The Hassa had already established a number of small states in which, like you have the Kano, Katsina, the Zaza or Zaria, were already quite powerful at the time of the arrival of the Safari. We know very little about the early history of the Hassa. They were clearly indigenous inhabitants of the area and had begun to live in a large village and town surrounded by defensive walls. Within the walls were lands of cultivation in times of siege. During times of peace, they formed surrounding countrysides. These walled towns were known in Hassa as Barine or Berni. Some of these towns, especially those with the fertile land and situated on a good position of trade, became rich. They expanded their territory either by peaceful arrangement or by conquest. They later seemed more likely method in the view of common defensive walls and were in their towns and villages. So let me do this for the people. Let me get you on the map. Let's deal with the Hassa. They circled up right here. So let's get them on the map, blow it up, so everybody know what's going on. There you go. There y'all go. They circled up over here. Everybody should be able to see that. Now, tradition records that there were 7 major states in Hassaland based on the Barine and the wall towns. They are said to have been founded by sons of an immigrant conqueror called Bayezid. One son founded Barine. Can y'all see that on the map? You might not be able to see it because they ain't got all of them listed on here. Let's see. Another son founded Durar. You see Durar on there. Yep. Just look where you see Lake Chad, where the red circle at. Walk with me around that circle. All right. So one son found Marine, but you're going to call that Brno or close to Brno area over there. All right. The other son founded Durar. The other son found Katsina. The other son found Kanu, Rano, Zaria, and Gobir. There were certainly many other small states at the time, but these were probably the most important then. The most powerful among them by the 15th century were the Kano, because you had the Kano Chronicles, and the Katsina and the Zaria. The Kano and the Katsina were clearly well situated as southern termini of the trans-Saharan trade, while Zaria, lying on the southern borders of Hassaland, had access to the products of the southern Savannah and its forest. Significantly, Zaria, in the capital of Zazu, is said to have been imported as slave market. Now, boom, 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 bing, 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 bing. I'm giving you a slave market. The problem is this slave market is during the reign of Islamic rule, and they're doing trade in its late 1500s. See, we do real scholarship here. Well, not the feel good stuff. We do the real deal stuff. All right. So I just gave you a slave market. Gobir does not seem to have risen to the importance until after the 15th century. You hear that? Until after the 15th century. Now, I just mentioned something about a slave market. I asked those brothers on the other channel, can you provide me with a trade route and a slave market? And they could do neither before Arabs. Now, this slave market I just mentioned was not before Arabs. But my point is that we know a slave market was there during the time of the Arabs. Now, pre-Arabs, we ain't got none of that. Let's go. Islam appears not to have gained a significant hold in the area until the second half of the 15th century, when the kings of Kano, Katsina, and Zaria not only accepted Islam personally, but also adopted it as a state religion. Muslim ideas and administration were introduced into these states. Mosques were built, and Muslims' law, to some extent, replaced traditional law. Before that, it would have seemed that the Hassa kings ruled according to the traditional forms of Hassa government. Even when they were Muslims themselves, it is clear that the Hassa and the Bujada rulers had established their authority over indigenous rulers. The Kano Chronicles, which is the most important chronicle in the history of the Hassa describes an existing group of priest kings who, after the Bayajida conquest, continued in the authority for some time. It is not until after the 15th century that we began to have detailed and more reliable information about the Hassa states. Across the Savannah of West Africa, there were numerous small states like Kano, whose history is, as yet, very vague before the 15th. Only brief mentions can be made of the more important ones. We have already talked of Takwar, the oldest Muslim state of West Africa, according to the records. For periods, it was subject to Ghana and Mali. I'm going to run it back. Takwar is the oldest Muslim state in West Africa. With the collapse of Mali, it gained its independence under a new ruling dynasty in the Fulani south of Takwar, lay the small kingdom of the Wolof, which by the end of the 15th century had gained control of a much modern Senegal. So let me take y'all to Takwar. You look on the map, right here by the Atlantic, you see Fouta Toro, Fouta Djallon. You see the Senegal, Takwar, right over here. So we went from here all the way over here, and this is the oldest. Regarding the Muslims, you see the Gambia River right there in the middle. All right, so now everybody know where we at. We ain't got to move too much. Now, Wolof was described by the Phoenician explorer Comodesto, who visited in 1445. He says the ruler of the Wolof was known as the not Berber, but Burba, Burba, and his office was elective. The Wolof state was to grow powerful on the basis of both the Saharan and Atlantic trades. By the mid-16th century, the Portuguese recorded that the Berber Jolof, you see the Jolof, you see Jalon, yeah, we're dealing with the Gambia, Senegambia area. Now, he says the Jolof had an army of 10,000 cavalry and 100,000 soldiers. Another important Savannah state at this time was the Massey. And we got to go on over here, move the map. Move the map. Does anybody know where the Massey at? It ain't on here, is it? You don't see it. You see Wagadu. You see the white Volta. You see the black Volta. You see the regular Volta. You up there, you see Yatinga. You see Yatinga, right? Huh? Look for Yatinga. Around this area over here. There you go. That's Massey. All right. This kingdom was placed strategically between Mali and the rich gold producing areas of the Akan forest. Massey was divided into states Yatinga, which I just showed you, Fada and Gorma, which you should see on there. You might not see Fada. Nope, you don't see Fada. But you do see this one, Wagadugu. You see that? Which was to become the senior of the three. Little is known about them in this period, except that they were able to raid in the Mali territory and even attack Timbuktu in 1338 and penetrate 500 kilometers into the Sahara to Walata. We should have to spend much space listing that little we know about all Savannah states of West Africa in this period. What is important here is that as you begin to study West African history in depth, you should not think that the only important developments in West Africa, Savannah, were Ghana, Mali, and Canaan Borno. It is only that we know much more about them at the present. Man, look, y'all rocked out with me for a while. 2 shows. You know, like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. We doing West African history at its finest. You know, we don't preach, we teach. So I like to thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to continue our run on West African history. We're going into West African history books, external, internal, oral traditions. If we got to go to supportive linguistics work, archaeology, paleontology, If we got to go to other fields, all 5 fields to prove the oral to be stand up, we're going to do that. We have a methodology that would allow us to do that. We have been trained with the tools to know how to disseminate information and provide it in context so that we're not going in circles, so that we're not losing our way. Our goal is to advance knowledge here. Welcome to the Massey Warrior Clan YouTube channel. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Click the bell. Rock with your boys. We in the West. I might be stuck in SARS-CoV-2 conversations, but we still in the West. Throw your W's up. We're going to continue to bring you more West African history. We're also going to continue to bring you more West African kinship, rulers, people of their day and their time. And we're going to allow you an opportunity to follow up with us on these rulers and these kings, and you get more familiar with them as we go down the line, or we go, from one kinship to another, or one area to another. But see, we just got into the Savannah states. We didn't get too detailed because, like I said, I have the sources to drown out all the noise, but I want y'all to walk with me, right? I tried to get y'all to walk with me when I did the presentation, Windows of West Africa, right? And I'm gonna pull that up for viewers, especially those of you who are still tuned in. And I know many of you have never seen this presentation before. This I know. This presentation is 2 hours long. But I'm going to show you how old this presentation is. Look at me just scroll. 2 years ago. Keep scrolling, Sean. 2 years ago. Oh, look at that. All that slave trade stuff. Look at that. Welcome to Elmina Castle. The Mancala. Look at, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at when your boy was talking about vaccines 2 years ago. Look at all this stuff. All y'all got to do is just go back, rock with us one time. Look, watch the slave trade stuff. Come look at the Hausa, the house of the Hausa. The Igbo, the forest in Yoruba. Come on, man. The story of an African prince. The true story of an African prince. He was a slave. He was enslaved, and so you got all of it. Welcome to the Omo Valley, the Caribe people. Come on, man. Behind the mask of the Massey. Welcome to the Sahara. Seminole Wars. We're doing all kind of things, West Africa. I'm telling you, plenty of stuff on the slave trade. Look at that. Shipping, exploring new territory, slave trade stuff. Come on, man. Slave trade stuff. Look, a part 1 and part 2. Come on, man. This says 3 years ago. Slave trade stuff. Look at that. The prayer of the Portuguese. Massey Warrior Clan presents knowledge of. Look at that. Look, we there. This is all you got to do. Is just rock with us. But let me get to. I skipped the presentation. Let me get back to it. Look at that. Welcome to the Sahara. From Windows to West Africa. Is it still available? I think somebody tried to claim some copyrights or something on them. There you go. I said 2 hours. It's an hour and a half. Look at that. I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of boom. I don't know why Don Lemon keep popping up. But Windows of West Africa, the journey back home. Right there. May 6, 2018. I tried to introduce y'all to West Africa years ago. I even brought it back in Killmonger's Corner Volume 2. I try to reintroduce y'all to West Africa. I know y'all ain't seen this. People really wasn't rocking like this. Mm-hmm. Yep. See, we've been doing it, but you have people who shun that, who won't even go and look at and review our work and see, oh, okay, they've been doing all of this. Look at that. Kingdom of Kalabari. I would tell you something about these people, but I ain't gonna tell you. Mm-hmm. We've been doing it. Gory in the house of the ancestors. Smoke. Man, we got free smoke for everybody. The Tomboros, floating tombs, slave trade stuff. I mean, come on, man. We were doing this work. We've been doing it. We've been doing it. We ain't making nothing up. Like, we've been trying to educate our people and move the conversation years ago, doing extensive research on the subject matter, just not to just talk about it in circles. Come on, man. But it's laughable. It's laughable. It's a joke to them. Windows to West Africa in the chat. Mm-hmm. Come on now. Let's get into it. People bumping their guns about it. Let's get into it. And then I'm out. 40 seconds. That's all I need.
Traders, particularly the Ashanti, like their European counterpart, suffered from the abolition of the slave trade. They at first found abolition incomprehensible. Like other powerful rulers, the Ashanti now had the problem of the disposal of war captives. Though he strongly denied going to war simply to acquire slaves, he pointed out that one of the readiest ways of disposing of war captives who could not be absorbed locally was to sell them. At the time of the abolition, he had 20,000 captives on his hands, whom he frankly confessed he could not feed, adding that unless I kill or sell them, they will grow strong and kill my people.
You heard that, right? Just real quick and simple. Boom, 40 seconds. The Ashanti, the war captives. He told you right then and there. He told you right then and there. O.C. Bonsu told you right then and there. He told you right then and there. In 40 seconds, I killed it. I got too many of these captives. I gotta sell them or they'll raise up and kill my people. That was his fear. That was his fear. O.C. Banu. He said it. I gotta get rid of these people. I got too many war captives. I gotta sell them or they'll rise up against me. You don't even know when he rained. See, this is what I'm saying, man. Like, we really do it over here. Like, we really need our respect. Like, we really get into the homework and we really try to bring it to you in a raw way. We really don't sugarcoat anything. We really give it to you all the way around. We do not waste 8 hours of your time on blasphemy. And we don't think we know it all either. But we're really giving it to you from the historical perspective in full context. None of that generalizing, fluffy stuff. We really about it. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. It's an honor and a privilege just for anybody to view these videos. And, they may not get 1,000 views, or they might not get 1,100 views, and people might not hop on and off our streams, and people might ignore us along the way. But what we try to do is provide you with sound scholarship, real history, using proper research methodology, using textual criticism, all of those things that we need to use to make sure that we stay on top of our stuff. Appreciate that, Brother Trevor. But I'm just letting y'all know how we do it over here on this side. Yeah, I mean, okay. So the listening audience that is live, you may not, and other people may not appreciate what we're trying to do in these moments. But maybe when we're all dead and this stuff outlive us, that next generation of people seeking to find themselves, or what they call consciousness, or looking to get in the correct information, maybe they'll appreciate it. You might not, but maybe they'll appreciate it. See, in scholarship, you can't do favorites. You can't idol worship. It has no place here. See, people like right? People like, they love right? And sometimes they make bad decisions, but it happened. But it happened how it happened. So look, with that being said, man, it's no longer on me. It's on you. I'm giving you the information. I'm providing you the sources. I'm doing the presentations. We're writing the books. So we're doing stuff for free. And then we write books to build up an economic base, but we use that economic base that we build up to provide other opportunities for what we call Pan-Africanism. We're standing on our square. We're trying to involve relationships across the country back to the continent, thanks to Sister Ladosha for the connection. We're trying to do things on this side and that side because we can walk and chew gum. We're just trying to bring people credible information that they're not getting, that they're missing, that hasn't been a part of the community, that has been lost for years. But, we're not as entertaining as everybody else because we ain't cracking jokes and cussing each other out and talking about people mamas and all of that over here. We don't do that. And I apologize that we don't do those things to entertain y'all. But if you paid any attention to what I did in 2 videos ago yesterday, if you paid any attention to what I did yesterday, I carved them up. And he don't even know it. He think that I proved his point. But someone who recognizes scholarship would be like, "Oh, you ate him alive, bro." And then to say, "Oh, you proved our point. You just gave more context." So you didn't provide no context because you didn't have it. You still don't even know what you're arguing. We're going to keep this series going, ladies and gentlemen. We will educate you on West Africa, and we will make sure that you enjoy it. These videos will all be under an hour. We are over the hour mark right now. This one will be an hour and less than an hour and 5 minutes. But this will be good for you to go back and watch, pay attention to, right? You might be working, you might be exercising, you might be doing something else, but you could go back and listen to these videos, and you can jot down notes, jot down little bullet points or things of that nature that you might want to put in the chat, in the comments, in these videos that you might have questions about, and we actually can address those. Or you might just be trying to learn, and you write down some things because you want to come back and know more about that subject matter, and you might get into some books or some sources or some source material that might elaborate more on something that you heard this evening. By the way, Sean got free smoke for whoever wanted. Whoever wanted. I'm gonna stand on a scholarship. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna talk you to death for 8 hours. I ain't got that. I ain't got that kind of time. Go pick up your copy of Spellmasters. Go pick up your copy of Spellmasters. If you're listening to the sound of my voice right now and you don't have Spellmasters, go get Spellmasters. If you listen to my voice right now and you ain't got What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me, go get your copy of What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. Whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, whether you don't care if there's mandates or whether you're against mandates, go get your copy of What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. I want to hear from you, especially if you're unvaccinated and you're against mandates and all these other things. You're just totally against it. Get it. It's subject for scrutiny. I need you to scrutinize my work. Get the book. I don't want to feel like that I didn't do what I set out to do for my people. And that was to make sure, right? That was to make sure when my life is over, what would history say about our generation? I ain't going nowhere. Get the book. Come on, man. Support, support, support. FamilyConnectedApparel.com. We got clothes, we got gear. Get you a Signs with Sean shirt. Rock with your boy. We will on Friday. I'm going to say it again. On Friday, we will deal with our science class. We will resume that on the Science with Sean class. And when we get into West African history, we will continue West African history over here. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to deal with history over here. West African history. We're not gonna put no more science videos on the Massey warrior clan because we trying to talk about West Africa and rebuild West Africa back up. So we're gonna have this series going. And on the Science with Sean channel, we're gonna get into our study group. We're gonna talk about COVID. We're gonna talk about vaccines. We're gonna deal with some. We might deal with some claims. We definitely will get in the book at the proper time. I know people don't like me, don't support me, and don't care anything about me, hate the sound of my voice in the whole 9 yards. I know, I get it, and I understand it. But I promise you will never have a problem with my information. If you have a problem with my information, it is subject to scrutiny, and I advise you to slow it down, prove your point, and I'll listen. It's just that easy.